Democrats are now discovering millions of missing votes that existed in 2020 that suddenly disappeared. Those same votes that we were concerned about, asking where they came from for a long time, now they're asking the same questions. You can see this guy is named John Pavlovitz, an influential account on the left, author of a bunch of books, does media, and is somebody who is highly followed. And you can see he posted something that I really liked here. It's a very curious question that he's asking. He says, I'm really not trying to stoke a conspiracy, but is it really feasible that Dem enthusiasm at near Obama levels, an insurrection, which is their, ideology, the fall of Roe, Trump's SCOTUS immunity deal, and Project 2025, it really yielded 15 million fewer blue votes? Help it make sense. This is a good first step for them. Now they're coming at it from the other angle. Yeah, we're wondering, where did those 15 million or so votes come from in 2020? Where'd they come from? Oh, everybody was locked down and so they were voting extra hard? Yeah, right. For Biden? Yeah, right. 15 million viewer. It's not like 2 million, 3 million. 15 million? Yeah, it's a great question, John. People are going to say COVID, and that's the black swan, so that changed everything. It brought out 15 million more blue voters, and all of that has now, right? Think about the anti-Trump sentiment in 2020. Then add an insurrection to it. Then add all of the criminal prosecutions. Like, he's right. If the anti-Trump enthusiasm really yielded this turnout, like if anti-Trump energy was so high that Biden got 15 million additional votes, where'd they go? It should be double the anti-Trump energy, okay? Which we never believed. It was fake. There was no anti-Trump energy in 2020. It was fake. There was none of it in 2024. That was all fake too, except the numbers this time revealed it. So it's a great question, John. I encourage you to continue to investigate this. I hope he does. He also posted this. Enthusiasm for Kamala Harris among Democrats was near Obama levels, and yet we're supposed to believe that yielded 15 million fewer votes than Biden got in 2020. It's madness. We'll never know what happened, he said. Here was one from Mueller, she wrote, another big account on the left, almost 1 million followers, 788,000. Mega Kamala account says, I hope in the coming days someone is able to explain how we had record turnout this election. We had record turnout, right? Everybody kept saying that. But we had 18 million fewer votes than in 2020. Both of those things can't be true. Yes, you're getting closer. Warmer, warmer, warmer. Keep going. Warmer, yeah. How did that happen? Very curious. So another big account is asking the question. This one came out from Ian Morrison. He does politics. He's asking the same thing. He says, it's hard to believe that 15 million Democrats evaporated overnight. They didn't appear in Trump's numbers, right? Trump didn't get 15 million people. Where'd they go? So either 15 million Democrats chose not to vote or something is up. I know the last thing Democrats want to do is become the stolen election conspiracists, but they can't shrug it off. I encourage them to investigate elections. All right. I fully encourage it. I think they'll find that this election was probably rigged against Trump too, but they couldn't rig it big enough. This one came out from Tessa Michelle. She says 3 red flags. Okay. I'm just trying to think logically. All right. Not emotionally. Just 3 red flags here. Nancy Pelosi doesn't get counts wrong. That's all I have to say about that. Okay. She wins. Elon said Putin and he were in regular contact. How do Dems lose 20 million votes? Okay. No way in hell 20 million Dems sat this election out. I agree. Why would they? They were animated. And we saw poll after poll here. Remember, we kept talking about it? Poll after poll that Democrats have bigger enthusiasm than the right. I was sitting here, we got to pump those numbers up, baby. Let's go. Are you serious? Like, we're not animated this election? This is crazy. They were always like 2 percentage points up. And those are all fake, right? Of the numbers. But that was the narrative. Like, if the Democrats are that enthusiastic, where did they go? Truth. They never existed in the first place. And if their investigation continues, hopefully they get to the bottom of it. Here she says, if it's feasible, we have to find out why this happened. They should. I mean, they need to know where those 15 million voters went. Very difficult for them to figure it out. Trump didn't get it. Okay. Trump 2024 got less votes so far than Trump 2020. 72 million 5, according to Simone. She's over from CNN or MSNBC or whatever. But she's asking these questions. Right now, Trump has less votes in 24 than 20. Votes are still coming in. She says, so is the story right now really massive realignment and mandate? Given that Trump is not even going to reach Biden's 81 million votes. Like, this is a historic election. Trump swept everything. Not even going to get close to 81 million of 2020. And Dems haven't won the majority of white voters since LBJ was on the ballot. Says, or is the story, she asks, great questions, is the story the roughly 13.5 million Dem voters who turned out in 20, but not 24, and finding out why? Where did the 13 million Democrats go? To be clear, the way you find out why is you ask the voters. Yeah. People are saying, do a recount. Get Joe to do a recount. Ask the organizers what they were hearing, just like people did with white folks in diners in 2016. She's got her eyes out. Wow, that sounds like they're engaging in some election denialism. They should investigate this because I think they'll find some interesting things. Maybe it will open up their eyes. Here's another attorney called Pam Keith. She's got 175,000 followers on X. CEO, nominee, litigator, she, her, all the things. Says, my absentee ballot in Pennsylvania is marked as ballot returned, but not as ballot counted. Can someone confirm if there is a different status if it is counted? If it is counted. So she's asking questions. What happened to my ballot? Now, we all have seen these numbers before. This is what it looks like on a bar chart. Source on this one was from Zero Hedge originally. These are what the votes look like. This cycle, 2012, 2016, Obama, Hillary, Biden. Through the roof. Kamala back down. Very curious, isn't it? And they just exploded those numbers. Now, Trump 2024 numbers, like, these should still go up. Like, you would expect, I would imagine, these numbers also to go up a little bit to match some of those numbers. Like, although if they're going to commit millions in fraud, they're probably committing it in a certain ratio. So, like, they're not just going to do 18 million votes for Biden in 2020, right? They'll probably do, if they're going to do 18 million for Biden, they'll probably do 4 million for Trump, right? Because you got to dilute your fraud and have some that looks real going to the other side. So if there is fraud, I would imagine inflates the numbers on both sides. I mean, clearly there's fraud because where did these voters go? Like, look at those numbers. And this chart looks like it's to scale. Where'd the voters go? It's crazy. Republicans, you would say, kind of have a steady trajectory of growth. 2012 was a Romney thing, right? There was like no enthusiasm for him. So you can see how that all is playing out. But those numbers make sense. We're asking, where's that delta? No one knows. Remember this, we talked a lot about this in 2020, but these are the bellwether counties. And look what happened again, right? The bellwether counties are counties that every time they vote, the county goes with the victor, like every time. So in Valencia, New Mexico, for example, every time they voted with the winner, except in 2020. Isn't that shocking? In Indiana, Virginia, we got a county. Ottawa, Ohio. We've got Essex, Vermont. Blaine, Michigan. Darlington, South Carolina. For these, every single time, like most of these counties are off one time. Like, for example, Sargent, they voted for Dukakis, but every other time they were on point. This one voted for Bush in Delaware. It actually went to Clinton, but every other time they're in sync. Look at 2020. All of them voted for Trump except this one went for Biden, and they gave it to Biden. They stole the election, man. And these are just data. 2024, they all went back to Trump again. This one was off, went Harris in Washington. And look at the numbers down here, right? How often do they hit? 100%, 88, 94, 100%, 100%, 94, 94, 100, 100. 6% and 88% is now they're back on track again. Isn't that incredible? So what happened? Oh, they stole it. We read through that at the time. We were going through that analysis, and there's, I think, even more data than that, but it just shows exactly what they did. Now, I hope investigate. I don't know that they'll ever come to a conclusion on it. The Democrats are so invested in saying Trump was wrong in 2020. I don't know that they can ever, I don't know that their brains can process it. But here is a Latinx adjacent doctor, PhD, reported on this, says, look at this turnout. If the Democrats do investigate it, they might find out that they had even less votes than they expected this cycle. This guy says, yeah, no effing way. Look at this. Turnout of registered voters averaged by municipality. So Franklin, Greenfield, Oak Creek, look at the turnout. 98%, 97%, 98%. Almost every single registered voter voted. In Wauwatosa, 96%. Wait a sec. So in Oak Creek, there's 22,000 people. You're saying 21,000 of them voted? Yeah, it's more ridiculous than even that. Look at some of these wards, okay? Some of the wards, if you break it down, so you've got the counties, 22,000 people in a county, then break it down by ward. Oh yeah, Ward 5 had 1,006 registered voters on their list, but they had 1,019 voters, meaning there was 101%, 0.29% turnout. Yeah, very interesting how that happens. They have 865 voters in Oak Creek Ward 16, 865, but 876 voted. Some people wanted to vote twice, right? We said vote hard, but that's not what we meant. But yeah, Democrats should investigate elections. Would be very nice if they did that. I don't think they're going to like what they find, though, at at all. AP's out with a fact check. They said, hey, there's a multi-million vote gap between 2020 and 2024, and it fuels false election narratives, they say. Less than 24 hours after Trump was elected, social media users began pushing two conflicting narratives about these missing votes. Where'd they go? Missing voters, more specifically. Says one that revived false claims that Trump said the 2020 election was stolen. Yeah, but that's only the logical conclusion from the Democrats' new discovery about 18 million votes. Both narratives hinge on a supposed 20 million vote gap, but here's a closer look at the facts. Here's the claim. Joe Biden won approximately 20 million more votes in 2020 than Harris did, saying this either proves that Trump cheated this time or there was a cheat last time. The claims are unfounded. Votes from Tuesday's election are still being counted, so we don't know. So you can't compare them right now. Yeah, it's not close to closing the gap, the delta of 18 million. In addition, election officials and agencies monitoring the vote have reported no issues with Tuesday's election. So there's no fraud this time, right? Okay, so what does that mean? And also, claims of widespread fraud in 2020 have already been debunked countless times. Jen Easterly says, well, if we said repeatedly, our election infrastructure has never been more secure, never been more prepared than we are now. And multiple Pennsylvania officials say there's no cheating. Someone said 20 million votes weren't counted. I knew it. Trump cheated. Another user shared a post, a bar graph, and now the difference is about 67 million votes. Biden got 81, so it's 14 million, right? The number is shrinking. Trump is lagging behind his 2020 totals. Yeah, so I guess they're just saying it's COVID. They echo now many baseless claims that emerged 4 years ago. The Democrats should investigate this and get to the bottom of it. I hope they do. Yeah, what happened? How come? Yeah, I think maybe Trump and Putin stole election. They should investigate it, shouldn't they? Now, this is incredible. Okay, one of the best posts you might have ever seen came out from this individual. He said, well, Democrats, as we support their investigation of elections, and certainly their numbers were incredible in 2020. So they should figure out what happened this time and what happened back then. So here's one way they can try to figure it out. Vinland at Gaze Windward says, here's how you guys can figure this out. He's actually responding to Deb. Deb says, how can the total number of voters be less this year than were in 2020 after we've had the biggest turnout than ever before? Where'd the votes go? Demand a recount and an investigation. And Deb says, do not concede, Kamala. Do not concede. So here's one suggestion on how you can investigate this. So here you go. Vinland says, well, idea. I suppose you could try to make a case in court, but since the states haven't certified their elections yet, it might be difficult to establish standing once you file your lawsuit. Just get dismissed. So after the certification happens, once the courts say, okay, now you can file, you might have standing now, but unfortunately, they'll hear your case and they'll say, we can't overrule an act of the legislature. Oops. So then you could potentially try to gather a slate of alternate electors. Try this next. But Congress, under no obligation to accept them if you send them in there. So then at that point, you'd probably have to appeal to the Supreme Court. Seems like a good idea. But that's tough, since they don't want to be in the business of deciding elections. Then all that's left, really, is a good old-fashioned right of assembly for a redress of grievances. For example, that would be called a march. You know when a good date for that might be? January 6th is when the vice president certifies the election officially, and that's probably the time that you'll want to aim to achieve for maximum public impact. Good luck! Good luck raising your objections in the rigged system. And then, when you show up to protest, hopefully, you don't find a bunch of undercover federal agents who are there instigating people to go into the Capitol, into the Capitol, into the Capitol, and then standing on the balcony shooting paintballs, or projectiles rather, through a similar device, that are going into people's cheeks, exploding their faces all over the place, instigating people to have to move to leave the vicinity, causing a riot, because that's exactly what they wanted to happen. Nancy Pelosi admitting that she failed and that the CIA and others refused to answer any questions about who is embedded there. Hopefully, when you show up on January 6th, that doesn't happen. And if it does, hopefully you don't have a corrupt Department of Justice that then raids your house, destroys your life because you were in the Capitol building for 5 minutes, not doing anything violent at all, and then charge you with a bunch of bunk charges, make your life living hell for the next several years because you've been deemed to be a victim and an enemy of the state. Hopefully that doesn't happen to you when you go through this process, because that would be terrible.